and it was called the Spire Cop, like many sort of bank terraces around the country were in those days.
I remember walking up outside the streets and the crowds that were building up, and I got a little bit frightened because I was only down there and people were walking past, they were up there. And I got a little frightened, but my dad quietened down. He said, "You wait till we get on the ground," he says, "and I'll put you on one of the barriers." And that was the barriers there. And you'll be able to see the game. Because I was worried that I wasn't tall enough to see what was going on. And we did. We got on the ground and I got onto this barrier. And I was sure it was Northampton Town that we played. But I know we won. And that got me going. I was happy. We won. Coventry won.
The years leading up to World War II saw a big improvement on and off the pitch at Highfield Road. Clarry Borton was the darling of the Coventry fans. His goals helped Coventry win promotion to the second division in 1936, while off the pitch the ground itself was starting to take shape.
As a result of winning promotion, they put in train the building of a new stand to replace the original 1899 grandstand, and that was called the main stand.
There was the houses at the back where they used to open the shutters up and you go and get a cup of tea. Well, when they built this big stand and they stopped that game, the chaps used to walk round with tanks on the back with a pump on it and used to fill it up for tuppence, plastic cups.
Gates were high, they were averaging over 20,000, and each of the next 3 summers they carried out additional work on the stadium. They put in more terracing at the Cop end. They built what was known by many fans as the Crow's Nest up in the one corner of the Spire Cop, and they then built a canopy on the main stand because too many fans were complaining they were getting wet.
There was a wooden stand here, and at the top end of the football ground that was like a cowshed. It was just a cover, that's all there was there, and of course the Spire Cop was there, and that's where we used to stand, on the Spire Cop. I used to come sometimes 2 hours before a game because I'm being small. I'd got to have a spot and the steps went down and I used to stand on the end of the step.
I'm standing on Spire Cop one game when some bloke got excited and somebody nearly scored and he kicked out with his right foot and kicked somebody up the rear end because that caused a bit of a commotion. This bloke wanted to start a fight. And my father was about 5'10", 17 stone, and he just turned around and said, "Be quiet, I should be in the hospital."
Clarry Borton was the finest centre forward that Coventry City ever had. His goal scoring record was second to none. He scored 172 goals in 5 seasons.
He was an absolute idol, and he was brilliant in the air, but he was also very good on the ground. But we had 2 good wingers then who could go down the line, put the crosses over, and Clarry would be there to put the finishing touches to them.
World War II pretty much brought an end to competitive football in England, but games were still being played at Highfield Road. That was until the ground, like most of the city, was severely bombed in 1940. Although Highfield Road was patched up, it wasn't until 1942 that friendlies were again staged there.
I'm right in saying that it took a couple of bombs during the war. And it never really got it, just after the war, it never really got the flow that you got. I mean, that's beautiful, that is. You can play snooker on that. But you couldn't play it like that, did you? And it was, your boots, the boots were different, the ball was different, the ball was leather. If you got rain and you got mud on it, it stayed on it, it didn't come off like it did now. You headed the ball and you headed the lace. Oh.
There were a couple of big holes in the pitch. There was a crater on the terraces at the west end, and football had to be halted there, and there were no games played for almost 2 years until they could afford to put right the damage.
In the wartime, Billy Morgan and Charlie Elliott, I was in the AFS then, and they were firemen at the central station. And because they kidded you like mad, you know, especially Billy. He was a great man.
My father one Saturday brought me along to this stadium, and what a welcome it was. I was flabbergasted. There was 29,000 people. It was a local derby against Birmingham, and it was just couldn't get over it. I was the football bug hit me there and then. This was something for me. This atmosphere was fantastic.
The post-war years started off pretty well for Coventry, but after knocking on the door of promotion to the First Division, they were relegated to the Third Division in 1952. They continued to make ground improvements, however, and for some people it was a joy just to have a chance to play at Highfield Road.
It's my first game for the first team, so I'm sitting in the dressing room 15 minutes before the kick-off getting changed. And the tannoy comes on, team changes. For number 9, instead of Ted Roberts, Jack Evans. And what did I hear? Oh! And I'm sitting in the dressing room and I've listened to that, all of them, that, oh! That was it. That was a good start, that was, wasn't it? But it all ended well. I got the winning goal, so that was it. I got the goal that end. Cross from Leslie Warner from there, nodded in, so that was it.
What was that like?
Brilliant. I got a standing ovation coming off, which was very pleasant, very pleasant. Yes, it was, it was. That was my 10 minutes of glory, that was, yeah.
Well, the ground didn't really change very much from the war right through to the early 1960s. The major development was really in floodlights, and Coventry City installed their first floodlights, which were literally lamps on wooden poles around the pitch in 1953.
Also in 1957, the Supporters Club raised money for the building of new floodlight pylons. It was a new floodlighting system. It cost £15,000 and they replaced the original floodlighting system.
Those floodlights actually lasted right through till 1993.
But the thing about Highfield Road for me was the fact that football at Coventry City kept me very fit. Because at 8 years old, we used to go down the town in the morning to the pictures and run there and run back, and I used to live at the other side of the city. And then in the afternoon, after shoveling our dinner down, we'd run down here and run back after the game. And I used to sit over there in the corner by the sparring cop, leaning on the wall because the wall was low enough for us. And it was just an exciting time to come and be with all the grown-ups, because we didn't have to bring our parents. We could come and enjoy ourselves and then buy buns and things on the way home with the bus fare we'd save, because we'd run both ways.
You know, you didn't have cars in those days. You got the bus and then you walked from town all the way up. Just mixed in with the crowds and walked up with them. We pay at the turnstiles. There was no season tickets or anything in those days. You just paid at the turnstiles and went in.
A very uneven pitch. There was a drop from one side to the other of about 12 foot. The terraces were nearly all open. The grandstands were antiquated. But it was just atmosphere. It was great to be here.
It's a bit of a dump really. It's all sheds, and so the only exciting thing was the meat pie really.